Good morning to all gathered here in our sanctuary and to all who are joining online. We begin our service this morning with a musical prelude by Scott DeVoe. Thank you, Scott. Good morning again, everyone. My name is Reverend Leah Derland Jones, and my pronouns are she and her, and I am pleased to be leading worship this morning with my colleague, Reverend Tim Temerson, and with our music director, Scott DeVoe. Whoever you are and wherever you come from, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Charlottesville welcomes you. We are delighted you have joined us this morning and are grateful for all who have made this moment of our gathering possible. I invite us to take a moment to greet one another. Those online may unmute, and those here in the sanctuary are welcome to greet your neighbors, especially those you may not know. We offer a special welcome to newcomers and invite you to join us for coffee. We're going to be gathering this morning for refreshments on the playground. So you'll leave these doors here and go right out into the playground if you can handle steps. And there are tents and lots of yummy things that wait for you, as well as people who will be excited to greet you. And this is because as we continue to work on the new flooring for our social hall, it's not quite finished. We need to give those workers another few days to get that taken care of. We hope to be back in the social hall next Sunday. And we remind all our UUCville members and friends to please offer a warm welcome to those who are visiting with us this morning. And if you see someone and you're not sure they're new, be brave and say, "I'm sorry, have we met before?" and introduce yourself. Many thanks to the people who make our Sunday morning worship service possible, our greeters, our ushers, our hospitality and altar decorating teams, and to our wonderful religious education leaders and volunteers. And of course, a special thanks to our AV Tech team, led today by Nash Ford and Breck Gastinger. And now we have greetings from board member Tammy Wilt.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I know we're a little disappointed we can't enjoy our new flooring today. I do want to take time and thank the building and grounds committee, John and Walter and everybody. They did a great job. There's a newer bed outside. There's a lot of nice things going on. Would the building and grounds people stand so people can acknowledge you and thank you? It has been a lot, and it's an ongoing thing, and it is very appreciated. And as Reverend say, I'm with the board. I am secretary. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to any of us on the board. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy. And here are this morning's announcements. For those joining via Zoom, we invite you to stay online for a conversation with other Zoom worship attendees until 12:30. The AV team will stop the recording of what's happening in the sanctuary and unmute everyone online to allow for free private discussion if you're interested in participating. So we thank our AV team for helping make this happen for those who attend worship virtually. Next Sunday, August 17th, is a food sharing Sunday, and all who are able are invited to bring food and cleaning supplies to share with those in our congregation whose budgets are stretched. Bring if you can, take if you need. This is how we embody the beloved community. Our annual water communion service is Sunday, September 7th, and we want to remind you that everyone is invited to bring water from your summer adventures, whether this means from your kitchen sink or from a trip away. And everyone will add our water to a common bowl as part of our water communion ritual. If you are in need of a small container for your water or something tangible to remind you to bring your water, we have a few small containers here, and we'll put them next to the bowl where we put our joy and sorrow stones, and you can pick one up after the service and place your water in it to bring with you on Sunday, September 7th for water communion. And finally, our monthly newcomer circle will be offered today at 12:15 here in the sanctuary. And if you are visiting UU-Seville for the first time, or you've been visiting over the summer and want to learn more about our congregation, please join Reverend Tim and the membership committee for 30 minutes of relaxed conversation. Let us prepare ourselves for worship now. Our call to worship this morning is from Jack Mendelson. Here, in this sanctuary of ancient dreams and wisdom and beauty, we come to grow, to be healed, to stretch mind and heart, to be challenged, renewed,
to be helped in our own continuing struggles for meaning and for love, to help build a world with more justice and mercy in it, to be counted among the hopers and the doers.
In the face of cynicism, darkness, brutality around us and within, we seek to align ourselves with a living community that would affirm rather than despair, that would think and act rather than simply adjust and succumb.
Here we invite the spirit of our own humanity and the healing powers under, around, through, and beyond it, to give us the nerve and grace, the toughness and sensitivity to search out the truth that frees, and the life that maketh all things new.
Come,
let
us worship together. Is there someone who would like to light our chalice this morning? I don't know. Bev, would you come forward? As Bev Ryan comes forward to light our flaming chalice, the symbol of our free faith, please join in saying our chalice lighting words. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. And then let's say the words with our hand motions. Our hand out flat like the matchbook and our finger is the match. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is a church of open minds. This is a church of helping hands. This is a church of loving hearts. Please rise now in body or spirit and join in our opening hymn, number 389, Gathered Here. The words will be projected and we will sing it through 3 times.
In the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Spirit, draw near. Spirit, draw near.
So last Sunday, I came down from the pulpit and talked about a little bit about what's going on and what's been going on in Gaza for well over a year and a half. How I and our church community have been too silent and too passive. I take responsibility for that. And my views on the role of the church in this time have evolved because of genocide and famine and other reasons, but those are the 2 prompting causes. So I want us to begin to think about and begin to act on how we as a congregation can make a difference for justice and peace in Israel-Palestine. I sent out a letter earlier this week. I don't know how many of you read it. If you did not get it, if you just walk through the doors, there's a few copies over on the credenza there as you leave the sanctuary if you want to take a look at it. And in that letter, I wrote that as a first step, I wanted us to take a special collection this morning for famine relief in Gaza. This is not something we normally do. This is an emergency collection. And Nash, why don't you go ahead, or Breck, go ahead and put the slide up on the screen. So you'll notice that slide looks like much like our normal offering slide, except that the key word to use in however you make a donation, make sure the word Gaza is in there. If you're online, put the word Gaza in. I think there might be a drop down that was added this week for the text address. If you Venmo, make sure you put the word Gaza in. And if you write a check, make sure you put Gaza in the memo line. And we have special baskets that we're using today just for this collection, because we will be taking our normal collection in its normal place later in the service. And the organizations that we are collecting for today are 2 leading food relief and hunger relief organizations that I personally feel are very trustworthy, that I've donated to in the past many times, and I feel confident that our donation will go to famine relief in Gaza. By the way, if you write a check, make it out to the church, we'll split the collection between these 2 organizations. The first organization is the UN World Food Program. There's a slide of them working in Gaza. They're on the ground. And then the second organization is Chef Jose Andres' World Central Kitchen. And I feel that our money will be well used by these organizations. So we invite you to please give generously to this collection. I would love to send these organizations several $1,000s each from us. And this will be the only Sunday in person we'll be taking this collection. We'll keep it open for a couple of weeks beyond this for online or mailed in contributions. So if you're on Zoom, you can, of course, go to those online pieces. If you want to write a check, you can mail it or drop it off at the church office. So please give generously. This is a small step. It's not the only step. It's a Band-Aid, not a solution, but hurting people need Band-Aids. And so let's do our part to help alleviate famine in Gaza. And our special collection will now be given and very gratefully received.
I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, God known by many names and no name at all. Our hearts are heavy, heavy with outrage and with grief for the suffering in the world, both near and far. It is too much. It is wrong, and it is unnecessary. Help us find the strength and courage to continue to not turn away, to remember that we are bound to one another as part of the human family, and that our liberation is mutual. May we notice and honor the love that holds us all. May we let it move through us and guide us as we engage in the actions of truth-telling, of protesting, of rebuilding, repairing, and in generosity, all in service of the common good. Spirit of life, help us remember that we are not alone. We are never alone. And let us draw on the gifts of collective wisdom and love and the power of the all-inclusive we to help us all for all of our days. Amen, and blessed be. We are an interconnected community that cares for one another, and part of how we embody this care is by making time each week to share the joys and the sorrows that we hold in our hearts. I will now share what was submitted earlier this week. In honor of all our joys and sorrows, both spoken and unspoken, you are invited to come forward and place a glass stone in the communal bowl of water. All are welcome to participate, including those who are new to our congregation. Those online may type their joys or sorrows into the chat. Please take a stone or stones from one of the baskets and feel free to come down the center or side aisles and make your way to the bowl of water on the table here in front. Meg Dunham of the pastoral care team will come forward to help hold the space, and Meg will be available for a few minutes after the service in the back corner here of the sanctuary if you're in need of support or you just want someone to listen. Those online may contact the pastoral care team at pastoral@ucharlottesville.org. Please come forward now with your glass stones as you are so moved. Our first reading this morning is from German pastor, theologian, and martyr Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and is called A Spoke in the Wheel. Bonhoeffer wrote these words months after the Nazis came to power in Germany. He says, "There are three possible ways in which the church can act towards the state. In the first place, it can ask the state whether its actions are legitimate, meaning it can throw the state back on its responsibilities. Second, it can aid the victims of state action. The church has an unconditional obligation to the victims of any order of society and to follow the command, do good to all people. The third possibility is not just to bandage the victims under the wheel of tyranny, but to jam a spoke in the wheel itself."
April the 7th, 1943. A fairly young Lutheran pastor is arrested and imprisoned in Berlin on suspicion of being connected to a plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler. He is an accomplished preacher and teacher, theologian, and spiritual writer. Since the Nazi Party's rise to power 10 years earlier, he has sought to convince his fellow Christians to resist Nazi tyranny and the persecution of the Jews. Unfortunately, his words and actions are, for the most part, unheeded, as the majority of German churches, both Protestant and Catholic, actively embrace silence, complicity, and for some, what we today would call Christian nationalism. The young minister eventually makes the decision, the difficult decision, to join the organized resistance movement, which leads to his arrest and imprisonment, and 2 years later, his execution at the young age of 39. Now, that young minister, of course, was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and his words, deeds, and yes, martyrdom have made him one of the most important and influential religious voices in modern history. The reading that Reverend Leah shared earlier was written barely 2 months after the Nazis came to power. So this was back in 1933, and was addressed to his fellow Protestant pastors. I have to say, I'm amazed that only 2 months after Hitler took power, Bonhoeffer had already begun to find his voice and had the wisdom, the foresight, and the courage to speak so powerfully against what he feared would be the Nazification of German Christianity and, of course, the persecution of German Jews. I think much of Bonhoeffer's wisdom about the purpose of the church, the purpose of religious community in the face of tyranny, came from two places. First was his understanding of what it means to be a Christian, and especially what it means to be a disciple or a follower of Jesus of Nazareth. And secondly, I think it was his experience a couple of years earlier, before he wrote those words, of studying in New York City and experiencing African-American Christianity. Let me say a brief word about both. Now, for Dietrich Bonhoeffer, being a Christian meant dedicating one's life to following and journeying in the footsteps of Jesus. Bonhoeffer's Jesus wasn't the savior, I must say, preached in many churches to this day. A Jesus who seems largely unconcerned with the state of the world, with the plight of the poor, the prevalence of war and violence, and the widespread racism that serves the needs of the powerful while leading to so much harm and oppression. Bonhoeffer's Jesus, as he so often said, is the Jesus of the Sermon on the Mount, a Jesus who cares for the poor, welcomes the outcast and the stranger, and urges us to love our neighbor and our enemy and to choose peace rather than violence. And if being a Christian means journeying in the footsteps of Jesus, Bonhoeffer insists that the church must be rooted in the values that Jesus taught: love and compassion, peace and nonviolence, radical welcome and inclusion, and so much more. As Bonhoeffer said, Jesus was a man for others, and the church is only the church when it is the church for others. I'll also add that Bonhoeffer's experience of African American Christianity during his time in New York did much to challenge his own privilege and deepened his understanding both of Jesus and the purpose of any church claiming to be Christian. As he sat in the pews of the Abyssinian Baptist Church in New York City, Bonhoeffer encountered a Jesus who was radically concerned with the plight of those who were reviled and rejected, a Jesus who himself was a marginalized person, a Jesus who was Black. Bonhoeffer took this experience from African American Christianity and came to really understand, to deepen his own, what we might call his Christology, and brought that back to the resistance in Germany. That experience led Bonhoeffer to demand that German Christians, and especially ministers, resist Nazi power in the three ways outlined in the reading: by questioning the state, by aiding its victims, and eventually, and if necessary, by jamming a spoke in the wheels of tyranny. During the 10 years leading up to his arrest, Bonhoeffer continually spoke against the persecution of the Jews and worked to create a kind of alternative Christian church, which became known as the Confessing Church, that was indeed rooted in the Sermon on the Mount, rather than what many German churches were doing, which was capitulating to the Nazis and, quite frankly, centering Adolf Hitler, not Jesus Christ. But as conditions for German Jews worsened and it became clear that more drastic action was needed, Bonhoeffer made the very, very difficult decision. He was a pacifist. He believed in nonviolence. He made the difficult decision to join a plot to assassinate Hitler, a plot, of course, that ultimately failed and that cost him his life. So let me just conclude this part of my sermon by simply saying that, like Dietrich Bonhoeffer in 1933, we are facing a moment that challenges us as people of faith to speak out, to offer love and support to those who are being marginalized and victimized, and to resist the tyranny of this current regime. Some in the clergy, Unitarian Universalists, will sometimes refer to moments like this as a Bonhoeffer moment. And I think we're there. While none of us, myself included, would ever advocate violence or take the steps that Bonhoeffer eventually felt forced to take, congregations and individuals of goodwill must do something to jam a spoke in the wheels of the creeping fascism we are experiencing every day.
This community offers its love and support to what is closest to our hearts. The way that we show our care for one another is by sharing our financial gifts with our community and with our congregation. Our social action collection for the month of August is Birth Sisters of Charlottesville, which is a doula collective supporting women of color through their birth journey and into motherhood. Nash and Breck, will you please show us the social action slide for giving? In addition to giving online, if you would like to make a donation with cash or check, please use the social action collection envelopes that are here in the sanctuary. And please make your check out to the UU Congregation of Charlottesville and write Social Action Collection or Birth Sisters in the memo line. We also invite you to support the ministries and mission of UUCville. Your financial pledges and gifts enable our congregation to put love into action. During the music that follows, you can make a donation to UUCville by using Venmo, the text address, or going to our website. You may also place cash or checks in the collection plates as they are passed. Let us now dedicate all the many gifts we share with one another by saying, "We accept your gifts with gratitude. May we use them wisely for the highest good." Our second reading is from Georgetown University philosopher, Olafemi Otiwa. In a speech delivered in 1857, Frederick Douglass made one of his most famous statements: "Power concedes nothing without a demand." As in Douglass's day, today's protesters face an uphill battle against entrenched political and financial interests. For them to succeed, they need to heed Douglas's warning. Protests must be backed by movements with the ability to make demands, including the promise to withhold things like labor and debt payments and rent payments, consumer support, and more, and to follow through if the demands are not met. When this happens, protests morph into real, tangible promises and demonstrations of an ability to escalate, backed by strategic leverage.
When Dietrich Bonhoeffer first called for the church to jam a spoke in the wheels of state power, I'm guessing he didn't yet have a clear sense of what that might look like. He may have imagined some of the things we do as a congregation and as individuals, maybe writing letters to government leaders, signing petitions, showing up and speaking out at meetings and committee hearings, and of course, something we've been doing a lot lately, attending protests. But in some ways, all of those are part of step one, which is calling the state out when it's not doing what it's supposed to be, when its actions are illegitimate. In the long run, I think Bonhoeffer meant something more decisive than protests and petitions. With the church wielding its power and authority to confront fascism, to minimize the harm it was doing, and to be part of a broader movement to restore democracy and freedom. As Unitarian Universalists, one option that has not been part of our social activism, but has been a matter of recent conversation, and it's something I want to address this morning, is taking the leap and engaging in partisan politics, meaning ministers like me, Reverend Leah, actually standing up here and endorsing individual political candidates or political parties. In other words, telling you who you should vote for. You may have heard that in the last few months, the Internal Revenue Service announced new guidance that permits clergy to endorse candidates from the pulpit, which has been against the law since the 1950s. Now, while that may sound like an obvious way that the church can bring about political change, our denomination, the Unitarian Universalist Association, recently provided guidance to congregations urging us not to engage in partisanship by endorsing candidates. The simple fact of the matter is that Unitarian Universalism has a long and distinguished history of upholding the separation of church and state. We do believe that people of faith can and should articulate their values in the public square, especially around key issues, poverty, equal rights, anti-racism, and so on. But breaking down the wall of separation that Jefferson so famously talked about would, in my view, pose a threat to both religious freedom and religious pluralism, making it easier in many ways for a single religion or church to establish something resembling a theocracy, imposing its belief on others. America is a Christian nation. The guidance from the UUA also warned congregations about a potential legal trap that might be used at some point to remove the nonprofit status of progressive religious communities like this one. I don't know about you, but I don't trust the current regime to apply this guidance or any guidance equally or fairly. So if partisan politics or partisanship is not a good option for UU congregations, how can we begin to meet this Bonhoeffer moment when freedom and democracy are so clearly under threat? We can, of course, keep doing what we do well, signing petitions and showing up at protests. And listen, I don't want to give you the impression that I don't like that stuff. It's great. I can't tell you how proud I am to see you all at protests when I'm able to attend and to see pictures or postings of you when you're at these protests. I'm like, go UUCville. I mean, it is just wonderful. But as the great Frederick Douglass reminds us in our second reading, power concedes nothing without a demand. And as Professor Otiwa observes about the many protest movements that have blossomed in the last 10 to 15 years, too often these movements have lacked clear, actionable demands, lacked needed unity and coordination, lacked a broader strategy for success, and lacked a vision of actionable outcomes. Protests by themselves make a powerful, powerful statement, but it is only protests coupled with demands and leverage that lead to political change. Okay, now what? Well, thankfully, there is a lot of history on the side of nonviolent jamming spokes and wheels. I didn't say that quite elegantly, but I think you get my drift. Think for a moment about, say, the Indian independence movement led by Gandhi or the civil rights movement in this country. These and so many other examples have demonstrated that nonviolent or civil resistance movements can be effective in challenging authoritarian governments and bringing about democratic change. And I think what makes nonviolent resistance effective is the many levers that it can employ: work stoppages, boycotts, targeted consumer activism, public protests, and much, much more. But what has enabled every successful nonviolent movement, this is what the history teaches us, what's enabled them to work is the presence of clear demands, a willingness and an ability to follow those demands with action, and yes, the resilience to see it through. Think for a moment about the Montgomery bus boycott. That boycott didn't succeed simply because Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat or because Dr. King preached some great sermons. The boycott worked because it unified the Black community in Montgomery around demands backed up by their power and their leverage. And after months of empty buses, and thanks to an ingenious system of rides and carpools organized by the African-American citizens of Montgomery, the white government eventually capitulated, and public transportation in Montgomery was desegregated. So if we decide to engage in nonviolent direct action in order to jam a spoke in the wheels of fascism and authoritarianism, how might we begin? Well, in typical fashion, we've got a program coming up that I'm going to invite you to attend. Our wonderful Mosaic team here at UUCville, some of those members are here today, is hosting a resistance gathering right here in the sanctuary in 2 weeks on August the 24th at 12:15. These gatherings are being organized by a movement called 1 Million Rising, a movement that works very closely with Indivisible and other such organizations. These gatherings are sort of beginning opportunities for us to, of course, be together, to talk honestly about the threats posed by the current regime, to do some learning about nonviolent resistance, to begin brainstorming ideas and strategies, and to affirm the truth, and this is so important for you all to know, to affirm the truth that everyone in this room can play a positive role. Movements like this don't just need people who are hollering on the front lines and holding signs, and I'm one of them, but we need everybody. We need people to, make lemonade and to, give rides. We need everybody. Everyone can play a positive role. So this is what we're going to be talking about on the 24th. Please join us. I'll be here, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. So let me just conclude by saying that we most assuredly live in troubled times, and we've got, I think, a lot of difficult days ahead. This is a Bonhoeffer moment, but we cannot shrink from that moment or hide behind the protective walls of our homes or this sanctuary. We've got to summon the courage of Dietrich Bonhoeffer and use the wisdom and the inspiration of this beautiful faith tradition, Unitarian Universalism, as a foundation and a springboard to resist authoritarianism and to find ways to create true democracy with freedom and justice for all. That, my friends, that is our calling, whether we're talking about fascism here in the US or genocide and violence and oppression in Israel, Palestine. I believe with all my heart that as long as we keep love in the center of our lives, love in the center of this congregation, and have the courage to put that love into action, we can and we will help create a more beautiful and brighter tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening. Amen and blessed be. Yes, indeed. Reverend Leah, would you please extinguish the chalice? I leave you with these closing words. They're in our hymnal from Ellen Johnson Fay. Do justly this day and every day. Be of good will. Journey humbly before the mysteries of life and before the gulf which separates us from the ideals which we profess. Live in peace and praise. Our day is just beginning, so may it be. Amen, blessed be, and go in peace.